Um, okay. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. And thank you particularly to Professor Broyde for agreeing to speak with us today about a topic that I don't think many of us have spoken about. I know in our family we always had a Thanksgiving, but it was also commemorating a family event. So we had a very emotional, big Thanksgiving, and yet it's something that always came up in school or things that people were talking about. So um, this, I'm sure, is going to be a very interesting talk. I've had a chance now to meet Professor Broyde a little bit. Broyde a little bit. I will get the name, sorry. Um, and so I know you didn't come to hear me. I want to remind everybody before we begin that next week we have a talk with Professor Pereira, Professor Rabbi Pereira, about his book and manuscripts. And December 10th, we have a live event in New York, the Exiled Jews from Arab Lands. So I'm excited for those as well. But for today, we're going to be speaking about Thanksgiving. And I do encourage those who are with us so far to ask questions, to engage, and to be a part of the conversation. For those who are at home, I encourage you to send in your questions afterwards because I hope this is a continuing conversation. So, on behalf of Jewish Unity Through Diversity, I am very excited today to welcome Rabbi Broyde to our uh, little series here. Rabbi Broyde is a professor of law at Emory University and the Berman Projects Director in its Center for the Study of Law and Religion. And in the past, he has been the rabbi of the Young Israel in Atlanta, as well as a dayan and director of the Beth Din of America, holding many hats, which helps to bring different communities and cultures together. So thank you. I When I saw the topic, I got excited, and that's why I reached out and asked you. I hope that everybody enjoys it as much as I do. We're going to let you start, and then
Thank you very much. I guess we'll start by saying something that might be changing, but was historically true. American Jewish life was for many years viewed as unique because our experiences in America were essentially untainted by deep systemic governmental anti-Semitism. And we joined the American experiment happily and quickly realized that things were very different than they were from any other experience we had come to, whether it was the dominant experience of Eastern Europe or the less common Sephardic migration to America. And Jews strove to be good citizens in ways that, for sure, the Jews did not strive to be good citizens in Hungary or Yemen, where it was understood that we were second-class citizens, and nobody ever really enjoyed being labeled second class, whether it was formally or informally, depending on your culture. The Jews came to America, and they discovered that the government here did not categorize them by religion and gave them the same rights, give or take, that everybody did. And the government sought to foster through that neutrality religious growth. So as early as 130 years ago, Jews were celebrating Thanksgiving. And when you ask them what they were celebrating their being welcomed into America. And ancient Jewish schools, like the Spanish and Portuguese school, ran special programming on Thanksgiving. And even less old synagogue had Thanksgiving programming through and through. And it was not uncommon that people gathered together for a Thanksgiving meal. And in the post-World War II American Jewish life, when Orthodoxy really came into the forefront of its intellectual capacity, halakhic authorities started to talk about the Thanksgiving experience and what was our attitudes to it. And it's astonishing the number of great Jewish law authorities who stopped to opine on the Thanksgiving experience. It's 5 distinctly different tshuvot from the great Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the leading Jewish law authority in America for many, many years. Rabbi Soloveitchik used to publicly note to people that he celebrated Thanksgiving. And many great Jewish law authorities started to opine on the Thanksgiving process. And essentially, 3 camps developed. And I guess I'll start by explaining the camp that I'm not part of, which is the camp of Rabbi Hutner of Chaim Berlin. Rabbi Hutner spoke more than once, and his students have spoken more than once as well about Rabbi Hutner's fundamental opposition to celebrating Thanksgiving, which can be encapsulated in the following basic idea. Rabbi Hutner was of the view that the secular calendar was Christian, and secular holidays that were grounded in the secular calendar were definitionally tainted by their Christian origin. And thus, when you ask Rabbi Hutner about celebrating Thanksgiving, and I assume this is true for New Year's Day as well, and maybe even July 4th, Rabbi Hutner said Jews don't mark events by reference to the secular calendar. And if you press Rabbi Hutner, he said things that are all true, which is the year 2025 is a Christian demarcation of a year. The months are from various religions at their time, and Jews should stay away from using the Christian calendar in any way other than when absolutely economically necessary, but that you certainly shouldn't mark celebration through the Christian calendar. And the great Jewish law authority alive to this day, Rabbi David Cohn of Gvul Yavetz, says the same thing. Rabbi Feivel Cohn, another student of Rabbi Hutner, says the same thing. And their essential view is worth putting forward. Their essential view denies what I consider to be secular culture. They think that there are only 2 cultures, so to speak, Jewish culture and Christian culture in America. And they deny the existence of what I consider to be a thriving, vibrant, secular culture that is not Christian in any significant way. And when you say to me, but of course it's Christian, it's celebrated through the Christian calendar, I say in a moment of honesty, of course, the calendar is Christian in origin. But countless events that started as part of Christian ritual have moved to be secular. And that although it's true, it's 2025 from the birth of Christ, we no longer think of it that way. And our thriving American culture, while maybe has an ancient Christian base, the criticism of Rabbi Hutner and his students is that the Christian base has long since disappeared. And that the era where people write after the year 2025 Adodanius, from the birth of our Lord, is long over. And they don't even write AD anymore. It's a dating system that has its origins in Christianity, no doubt about it at all. But like countless parts of our secular culture, the Christian origins of our calendar system are ossified, old-fashioned, and not present. But nonetheless, Rabbi Hutner's point stands as a truth, which is we do acknowledge that when we use the calendar is not the Jewish calendar, and it's not the French secular calendar. It's the Christian calendar. But yet, when you press me on it, I say the Christian calendar is an ossified, old-fashioned idea that has little currency in modern-day America. But yet, Rabbi Hutner, writing in the 1950s, thought that there was enough there of an origins to Christianity that Jews should stay away. I think we don't follow it because while it could be true, it isn't true. And this is what makes America so special. In America, the dominant culture of our society is not Christian. It's also not Jewish, but it's secular. And that our government doesn't have a religion. That doesn't mean many people or even most people aren't Christian, but our society is distinctly Christian. And in our distinctly Christian society, in our distinctly secular society, the fact that individuals are Christian doesn't taint every single secular ritual with the veneer of Christianity. That's an
Can I
important.
interrupt and ask what the French secular calendar is?
Sure, it's not observed anymore in France, but after the initial French Revolution, they imposed a 10-day secular calendar like the metric system, which had totally secular origins, and it started dating from year zero of the French Revolution, long since gone and discarded. But you could imagine a society with a totally secular calendar. I clerked for a federal judge a long time ago, and his letter of appointment from the President of the United States did not give the date it was appointed. It said he was appointed to be a federal judge 197 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, 256 days into that year. That would be a secular American calendar. Of course, we don't do that either. When I stop and ask you to calculate how many years has it been since the Declaration of Independence, you can figure it out. But we don't date our documents that way. In the 249th year of the founding of the American Republic, that view is very weird. Only obscure federal documents. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, in 5 different tshuvot, adopts a different view, although not an enthusiastic participant in Thanksgiving, also not opposed. Rabbi Feinstein takes a more ambivalent view to these European transition events. He says, look, America is not Europe. The government is essentially a government of righteousness, and it doesn't impose upon us religion, but yet there's some hesitation in the Jewish tradition to bring secular rituals into our home, because in the end, we're a religion. And as a religion, we're somewhat hesitant to bring secular rituals into our home. Rabbi Feinstein plays with this over the course of 5 letters, and the letters each are a little bit different in tone. His initial letter in the 50s is less comfortable with Thanksgiving, and his final letter in the 80s is very comfortable, or more comfortable, with Thanksgiving, although I have no reason to think that he personally put out a turkey spread on Thanksgiving, but he recognizes over time that our American society becomes increasingly secular. And by the way, he says the same thing even about New Year's Day, which certainly starts as a Christian holiday. But by the time Rabbi Feinstein has picked up his pen, he senses that New Year's Day has lost its Christianity, which I think is distinctly true. New Year's Day has lost its Christianity in ways that Christmas certainly has not, and Easter certainly has not. Both of these views stand in contrast with Rabbi Soloveitchik's view. Rabbi Soloveitchik's view not only was comfortable celebrating Thanksgiving, but Rabbi Soloveitchik planned his schedule around going home and having a Thanksgiving dinner in his sister's house with his family. They celebrated Thanksgiving. And I think that when you ask Rabbi Soloveitchik or his leading disciple, Rabbi Lamb, about Thanksgiving, they said that the celebration of American holidays encourages gratitude towards the government, and gratitude is a natural Jewish emotion, and we need to acknowledge the good things that have happened in America that we were participants of and benefits of, and gratitude is a reflection of these Jewish values. That idea, I think, resonated very much with a certain era, which is the post-World War II, post-Holocaust era, recognized a sense of gratitude for all the good things that America was, and they thought that acknowledging that reality was important and sharing it with our community, that we feel this gratitude, was important. A similar view, but not exactly identical, is the view taken by Rabbi Belsky of a relatively right-wing yeshiva, Torah V'dah. He says as follows. He's writing in the 90s, and he's much more attuned to the reality of his time. He says, look, symbols of patriotism, not quite gratitude, patriotism, are very important. And we need to strive to inculcate patriotism in our community. And if Thanksgiving had an overtone of patriotism, he would be in favor of celebrating it. By the time he says this in the 90s, he says, I don't think it has that anymore. I'll editorialize and say he's onto something. Thanksgiving, which used to be a patriotic holiday, has become a shopping holiday and a football holiday, and the deeply moralistic, gratitudinal, patriotic themes of Thanksgiving are much less heard in our society than they were 70 years ago. Based on this, Rabbi Belsky was less comfortable celebrating Thanksgiving, not because he thought patriotism wasn't the virtue and celebrating it for our community wasn't the virtue, but because it had lost its patriotic purpose. I am in a different place. The funny thing, these things evolve. I comfortably encourage people to celebrate Thanksgiving. When I was a synagogue rabbi, I ran Thanksgiving events and meals because I think it's important that we be a little bit countercultural. Orthodoxy is a little bit countercultural, and Judaism is a little bit countercultural, and we should be counterculturally patriotic. In an era where Thanksgiving stands for football and preparation for Black Friday and eating till you roll off your seat, we should mark Thanksgiving by a return to the patriotism that it initially stood for. Thanksgiving started really in the Civil War as a mark of patriotism for the Union. It really comes from a set of decrees by Abraham Lincoln. It's true, there were original Thanksgiving celebrations in the 1600s, but the modern Thanksgiving celebration in the end of November comes from the Civil War threats to the Union. And I think it's worth our while that our community should double down on the patriotic virtue that we feel and that we want to share with our community. It's not quite gratitude, it's patriotism and the sharing of American values. We live in a very peculiar moment. We live in a moment where any reader of the paper sees anti-Semitism on the left and anti-Semitism on the right. And we're desperate that the center should hold. Some of us used to think that the solution was to go rightward, but we've learned that that isn't the solution. Some of us thought the solution was to go leftward, and we've learned that that also is not the solution. And thus, we have to work very hard to reinforce the central patriotic vision of America, which is America is unique among major countries. We do not have an ethnicity. We do not have a religion. We do not have a national church or synagogue. We are not Poland or China or Ireland, where Americanism is closely connected to a faith or an ethnicity or a religion. We are a secular democracy that wants every faith group to thrive on its own terms. And if we want that to succeed in America, the secret to that succeeding is defending that proposition. On Thanksgiving, we're given a chance to defend that proposition to our own family and around our own table. And it's important that we not only share our values out there, but we share our values in here. I've been running Thanksgiving dinners for many years. I always invite a table full, and I always focus the conversation not on football and not on the good buys you can find in Amazon or Target, but on the virtues of life in America as a Jew. And to me, those virtues are living in a secular republic without an ethnicity or a nationality. I'm glad we're not Irish. I'm glad we're not Polish. I'm glad we're not Chinese, where you have to be an ethnic Hun to become a citizen. We're America, where there's an ideal. But this ideal is open to Jews and Catholics and Muslims. And it's an ideal open to all. And we want to reinforce that on Thanksgiving to our Thanksgiving company and double down on the model of patriotism. Maybe if we double down on the model of patriotism in our own family, slowly but surely, these values will spread. And gradually we will strengthen the center in order to allow the center to regain its place, pushing back the anti-Semitic rhetoric that's taken hold in both the left and the right. And this anti-Semitic rhetoric is not just anti-Semitic, it runs contrary to the American ideal, which does not connect America to a particular religion or a particular race or a particular nationality. And we need to double down on that. So I'm strongly in the camp of celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm strongly in the camp of celebrating Thanksgiving. And I think we need to share this message on Thanksgiving with those who are around our table, in the hopes that if we share the message with everybody around the table, slowly but surely that message will be shared by everybody and the center will hold. Thank you all very much. I'm definitely open to questions. I saw some questions in the chat, but I couldn't read them because it's hard to lecture and read the chat at the same time. Anybody who wants to ask a question is welcome to do so. Please.
Susanna, do you prefer to open your microphone or do you prefer that I read it?
You might as well read it because it's all
Oh,
there.
I'm
okay.
sorry, Susanna, that I couldn't read it, but it's very hard.
No,
I
no, I read it out.
I
It's good.
understand. It's hard to write and listen at the same time as well.
So, one of the things she points out, and it's something that goes around a lot, that sales aren't unique to Thanksgiving. All national holidays have sales attached to them. And I think that's also something we talk about. My husband brings it up a lot at Memorial Day, because Memorial Day, when you think about it, what do you think about? You think about picnics and sales.
I
Um,
agree. But Black Friday has become a particularly significant sale day. My
That
10-year-old grandson mentioned to me that he has a favorite toy and it goes on for sale. So I understand.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in my post, my second post, that's because of the Black Friday business. That's because of the proximity to Christmas, where there's this emphasis on gift giving. So that's why the sale push is more now.
I agree, but I think we want to double down on the idea that we're not doing this for the sales, we're doing it for the patriotism. And since you touched on it, Susanna, I'll remark that American Memorial Day also needs to be doing. Israel has it right. The close connection between Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut is very valuable. I've proposed a few times in secular presses that we should make Memorial Day July 3rd and make July 4th Independence Day because we're commemorating the sacrifices for our freedom. And the Israeli model has it right. Memorial Day had people walking around wondering what we are commemorating, which is
mhm.
very sad because we are commemorating the brave and gallant sacrifices of our soldiers in the fight for freedom. And we should do that by connecting the sacrifices to our freedom by putting Memorial Day on July 3rd and connecting it to July 4th. The Israeli model of Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut is an exceptionally powerful model. I wish we did it in America, and it's sad to me that Memorial Day has caused people to wonder what we are commemorating. The whole purpose of Memorial Day has been dropped. I agree.
And then the question also with Thanksgiving is, oh no, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Completely lost it. And I didn't write it down. See, Susanna, you had it right. You wrote it down. Oh, in a historical context, you talked about the Jews being involved in it for about 130 years. Um, it, is there any Jewishness, if you want to call it that, or you think it's just the connection to the um, patriotism?
I think that there were always schools that celebrated it Jewishly, but the undergirded value was patriotism. You can create Jewish texts and models to celebrate American patriotism, but America has been uniquely good to the Jewish community so far. And the idea that we should celebrate the goodness of America Jewishly is still fundamentally American. So if you step into the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue, there used to be Thanksgiving services, but the services, well, although they were rabbinic in nature, they were essentially celebrating a secular idea, which is that America was a wonderful patriotic country, and we should double down in our celebration of it.
And if you go back to the Memorial Day, Spanish and Portuguese synagogue has it right also because they have the Memorial Day celebration where they actually go to the cemetery and commemorate the history
And
there too.
that's 100% correct. I was many years ago. I worshipped in a synagogue on Sixth Street that goes back more than a century. On a Memorial Day, the rabbi stood up and read out the names of all the congregants who died in World War One and World War Two and the Korean War and the Vietnam War. It was
Wow.
quite moving. It was moving. It was a celebration, a commemoration, and a celebration of the sacrifice. Okay, but I would think that that's very uncommon. When you ask which synagogue um, commemorate their fallen members on Memorial Day, I think it's few and far between.
Hmm.
Few and far between.
And I think that's true for Thanksgiving too. So maybe we'll start a trend with this. I
It was
encourage you all to tell people also, wish them a happy Thanksgiving. Have your meals, celebrate. Like I said, we have a family celebration that we do to commemorate as well. But I really appreciate you putting it into the context for us. So thank you. Um, and I
Thank you
really
all.
hope to see you
If
again.
there are any questions, you can either ask them now or email me. At the end of a lecture about 20 years ago, somebody came to me and said, Rabbi Broyde, you're so much less impressive in person than you are in writing. And I've always understood it to be a compliment. So I smiled nicely and said, so send me an email and I'll write you back a response. Um, I much prefer written communication. Feel free to send me an email. My email address is out there, and I'm much more impressive in writing than I am in person. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. I was impressed here and I appreciate your taking the time. Thank you. And thank you for those who joined us live and who will join us in the recording. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye.